So the Buffalo Bills have now fallen to 4-2 after back-to-back losses against the New England Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons, and I do think there are some concerns moving forward with this team. I feel like every year at this point, it's pretty much clockwork to see the Bills have some of the lowest odds to win the Super Bowl each year and actually be a favorite to come out of the AFC, and it's really because of two things, and the first one being that the Bills just own the AFC East. Ever since Tom Brady left and Josh Allen hit his stride in the league, they've won the division each of the last 5 years. So when you have that type of dominance in your division, most people just kind of chalk the Bills up each offseason as the division winner, having a home playoff game, being able to be a real threat to come home with the Super Bowl. But it also helps to have an MVP and future Hall of Fame quarterback in Josh Allen, as he's been carrying this team on his shoulders for a couple of years now. And while that is a positive of having a player at his caliber lead your franchise, it's also a negative at this point because of all the heavy lifting Allen has to do for the Bills to remain competitive and win these games. I think every Bills fan watching this video can kind of relate to what I'm saying, because you look at the past couple of years when the Bills have gotten eliminated in the postseason by the Kansas City Chiefs, what is always the common thread and common denominator? It's the defense not showing up, not playing well, but Josh Allen in the offense, again, going blow for blow against Patrick Mahomes, but always coming up a little bit short. You can go to the 13-2 game, you can go to the home playoff game in 2023 that the Bills had. It really hasn't mattered. The Chiefs always find a way to beat the Bills in the postseason, and that is largely due to the coaching staff led by Sean McDermott and the defensive talent that the Bills have. So yes, the Bills started the 2025 season 4-0. The Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens were struggling. Joe Burrow got hurt for the Cincinnati Bengals, and everybody was saying, this is the Bills' year. It's never been clear. All the other AFC contenders are having a down year. This is finally the Bills' time. But that has quickly come to a halt after the past 2 weeks, and I did warn Bills fans and really NFL fans as a whole a couple of weeks ago about this Bills team. I was not somebody that was super impressed with the first month of work that the Buffalo Bills showed, because they didn't really play anybody. The first week of the season, they took down Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, but their defense allowed 40 points in that game at home. It was like a once-in-a-lifetime miracle type of win for the Bills. They had fans leaving in the fourth quarter because they thought the game was over, and I would say probably 95 out of 100 times, the Bills are going to lose that game against the Ravens. And as we've seen with this Ravens team, they're very flawed. They're now 1-5 and look like they're headed for a disastrous season as well. But after that Ravens game, the Bills played the New York Jets, they played the Miami Dolphins, and they played the New Orleans Saints. Combine all three of those teams' records, and guess what it is? It's 2-16. The Bills were beating up on the Jets, who I think are going to have the #1 pick in the draft. I mean, they are that putrid. The Dolphins and Saints are not good teams. They're definitely going to be picking inside like the top 7, in my opinion. And look, I get the argument. You can't choose who you play on your schedule. The Bills took care of business, but against the Dolphins and the Saints, the Bills weren't able to blow out these teams. The Dolphins and the Saints actually had a real chance to win these matchups late in the fourth quarter. It took some red zone turnovers and the heroics of Josh Allen to actually escape with these wins. So that is why I had this team on fraud watch early in this season, because they hadn't beaten anybody and they were struggling to beat some of the worst teams in the league. In these last 2 weeks against the Patriots and the Falcons, I consider those teams to be decent and pretty good, but definitely not like real Super Bowl contenders. I mean, the Patriots are still in the midst of a rebuild. They just brought in an entirely new coaching staff with Mike Vrabel, a ton of new players this offseason as well. And they went on the road in Buffalo in prime time and took down the Bills. And then you go to this past Monday night, and the Falcons dog-walked the Bills, if we're going to be honest about it. They were moving up and down the field. The Bills could not stop Bijan Robinson, who had a career night. And Josh Allen was getting hit after hit after hit. They could simply not protect him against the blitz that the Falcons had. And I know Atlanta was coming off of a bye week, and Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator, going back to his days in New York, always schemes up pretty good defenses against Josh Allen. But I thought, again, that was a pretty eye-opening game that shows that this Bills team does have a lot of flaws, and their coaching staff is severely overrated. I am not somebody that thinks Sean McDermott is a bad head coach, but I do think it's fair to say that there is a ceiling that they've reached with him as their head coach, just with his conservative nature. His defense is not showing up in the biggest games and biggest spots routinely in the postseason. And at this point, I think we have enough information to really question if Sean McDermott is the coach to get the Bills over the hump and actually their first Super Bowl in franchise history. But particularly this season and even last year, I do think it's a little bit harsh to put all of the blame on Sean McDermott, because he's not exactly rolling out the 1985 Bears defense in terms of personnel. well, this Bills defense has a lot of question marks, and it all starts on the defensive line. What has been their Achilles heel the last couple of years in the postseason is they cannot stop the run up the middle, and their safeties in the back end of their defense just have not been good enough. And so here goes another offseason where the Bills don't really address either of those positions. I know in free agency they signed Larry Ogunjobi, but he got suspended for PEDs pretty quickly after they signed him. And you go to the draft and they spent a couple of day 2 picks on Deion Walker and TJ Sanders, who also has gotten hurt now. So while there is an element of luck here, you did not know Ogunjobi was going to get suspended. You didn't know your rookie defensive tackle was going to get hurt either. I still don't think it's smart to rely on a journeyman defensive tackle and then a couple of day 2 rookies to really fill that void on your defense. But even in the secondary with their safeties in Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, the Bills brought in no serious competition to replace one of those guys. I know Brandon Beane gets a lot of credit for finding Josh Allen and drafting him and building some pretty decent rosters around him, but I do think his last couple of drafts have not been very good, and we are seeing a lot of those holes now show up for the Bills. I mean, even outside of some of the defensive issues, I think another huge flaw that I saw on Monday night was the wide receiver core for Buffalo. And my reason for that is in the numbers. The Falcons blitzed Josh Allen over 54% of the time on Monday night, which was the highest Allen has saw in years. And that is simply the Falcons telling you that they're not scared of the Bills wide receivers. They're going to allocate more resources to get after Allen and just play man coverage in the back end. And that had so much success against this Bills offense. And I do think we're going to see more teams try to replicate that type of game plan. And that's because this Bills receiving core is just not that good. They spent an early second-round pick on Keon Coleman, and he's been a pretty big disappointment in my opinion. Khalil Shakir's a really good slot receiver, but he's more suited to be like your wide receiver 3 and kind of gadget player, not a go-to target on your offense. And they've brought in a couple of veterans like Joshua Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, but those guys were available and kind of just Jags for a reason, and we're seeing why every single Sunday at this point. I really think the only premier weapon on this Bills offense has been James Cook, who is one of the best running backs in the entire league. But when you get behind in some of these games and you can't rely on the run as much, that does limit how much you can use James Cook, which again is your best weapon on offense. So my overall take about this Bills team is that they've built an infrastructure and roster that is so dependent on Josh Allen being an MVP and being a pretty much perfect player. And it brings me to a lot of parallels between the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, where he is such a huge part and really the engine of that offense. And whenever Jokic is sitting on the bench for the Nuggets, they struggle. They're one of the worst teams in basketball. That is pretty much the equivalent of Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bills team. You've got a defense that consistently struggles to stop opposing teams. You have an offense that is really reliant on Josh Allen off script and making some crazy plays happen. And as we saw on Monday night and even against the New England Patriots, if he can't be perfect and make a superhuman play every other drive, the Bills are really going to struggle to win some of these games and even close out some of the inferior opponents. So my fear for this team is once they get into January and play some of the top teams in the league, we're again going to see them come up short because the overall roster talent and coaching staff is simply not good enough, and Josh Allen cannot do it all by himself. This is not basketball where only 5 players start and it's way easier to carry a team and franchise. There are 22 players that start in the NFL, so it's way harder for one player to have a massive impact and carry a team to these super high heights that the Bills are trying to get to. And a whole other piece to this is now you have the New England Patriots, who are 4-2 and currently first in the AFC East. They look like they have a nice young quarterback in Drake May. I think they have a better coach than the Bills and Mike Vrabel. And have you seen the Patriots schedule the rest of the season? It is an absolute joke. And the Bills schedule is not that much harder than the Patriots. I think they play 13 mutual opponents, but that could be enough to see a real competition for the AFC East division crown come the end of the season. I personally would still pick the Bills to win the East because of Josh Allen and their dominance in recent years, but I'm not as confident as I was prior to the start of the season, where I was like, yeah, the Bills are a stone cold lock to win this division for the 6th year in a row. And anytime you have a quarterback like Josh Allen in his prime and you're not able to be one of the top seeds in the postseason, that is a major issue and pretty much wasting some of the best years of his career. I'm not exactly sure the solutions for the Bills this season because they don't really have a ton of cap space. I don't think they're willing to trade a lot of their capital for some proven veterans as well. Like, it would be great in a perfect world to go trade for a receiver, trade for a defensive lineman, and trade for a safety. But one, there's not many good players that fit that prototype Laporta type available for trade? And do they really want to put all their chips in the middle of the table, mortgage their future for this season and maybe next season with these type of trades? I don't know. Now, the silver lining you can take away from this Bills team is that they do have Josh Allen, and every single game in a one-off scenario, they're going to have a chance to win because he is that good. From my vantage point and what we've seen from this Bills team year after year after year now, I just don't know how you can have faith that this season's going to be any different than those based off of the roster talent and coaching staff that this team still has. But I want to know what you think about the Buffalo Bills, and what do you think they can achieve this season? Are you still drinking the Kool-Aid and think they can go all the way this year, or do you have similar concerns that I have? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like in the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.